On the Mike with Mike, the best business radio program around. We bring you the best and brightest. That's what we do here, ESPN Richmond, 5 to 7 a.m. That's where, and it also will drop on 1 to 3 p.m. on Facebook. We're also on the Choice 105.3 on Fridays from 2 to 3, 2 to 2:30. That's where you can find the Mike King Biz brand. We're here back with the friend of the program. He did this a long time. Carl Knoblock is back. Carl, welcome back to the program.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's great to be back.
So, Carl, we have gone across the radio dial, starting in Chester, WNTW, over to Conservative Radio, WJFN, now to ESPN Richmond. Thanks for coming along the way, always bringing out some great information. But today, you're back again talking about SBA got money. And that's the word on the street. Is that true, sir?
Yes, it is. It seems like every time we think we're done, a new opportunity comes about.
Okay, so now we're out here right now. We are talking about the RRF, the American Rescue Plan Act, and there is within that the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. Sir, what's that, and then who's eligible?
Okay, we know that, and we talked about this a year ago, Mike.
Yes.
About one of the hardest hit sectors was restaurants, with the government mandates and everything else. And we've seen a lot of them shutter, unfortunately. Those have survived. Now, finally, some help is coming. And with that, there's allocated $28.6 billion to help the restaurants. And a lot of people just think of the classic restaurants you go sit down and eat. No, it could be a food truck. It could be a snow cone place. It can be a caterer. Anything that's tied to food and beverage. So your wine tasting rooms, your brew pubs, all those are able to pursue this opportunity.
On the mic with Mike, Carl Knoblock here. As you said, we've been talking about this since March of last year, pandemic hitting. You said restaurants would bounce back, and they did. One of the things that people are talking about now are like the internal workings of who survived, and the next step is how are they going to survive going forward. And that's what this plan offers here, is some help to business owners.
Yes, one of the things is that we know a lot of the restaurants, even to open up, had to put in a lot of systems, whether it was barricades, a new ventilation system. Those are not cheap products that you have to do. Personal protective equipment for your employees, training of your employees, all that comes into account. And with that, there was no way to absorb that cost. With this program, you can actually go recover those funds.
One of my Carl Knoblock here. So, Carl, when we first talked, the first round of PPP came out, it was for bigger companies, took advantage. The number was pretty big. As we went along, the numbers got smaller. What do you guys think will be the average for this program right here that the dollars are going to give out to the average business?
I give the administration a lot of credit because the first 21 days, it doesn't matter how many people apply here up front. The key component is the first 21 days is totally focused on women, socially, economically disadvantaged, and veterans. So that's where the focus is going to be to put those funds to. And then after 21 days, it will open up to the other people that have applied.
How long is the program going to run?
Until the money runs out. And you remember how quickly the funds went with the first round of PPP. We honestly feel this is going to go that quick also.
Oh, really?
And we think that Congress is going to have to look at potentially allocating more based on the demand.
Let me ask you, so the first round of PPP, the money evaporated quick. Boom, it was gone. But didn't the second round of PPP that the money stayed there longer than you guys, that there was money left over?
Yeah, roughly 180 billion. Yep.
So why do you think that this money is going to go? And PPP, they didn't really ask any questions.
Well, the first round, you're absolutely right. They didn't ask questions, but in the second round, it still wasn't, it got better, but it wasn't good uh, for a lot of people to jump in. But this third round of PPP that was just done, they finally made it more like a working capital type loan setup where you could actually pursue more things um, besides your payroll. And then they included things like insurance, disability, things that are typically in a payroll process. All those things got added and it opened it up much better. And those funds are moving nicely for the third round PPP. And we think with this restaurant one, what's kind of really unique, Mike, it's before you kind of had dates that were set that if you weren't in existence at this point in time, you couldn't go after anything. And that was kind of what was happening with a lot of restaurants. You know how much time it takes to come about
That's true.
to open up. And so you have all that prep time. And we had restaurants that couldn't open, but they had all this upfront costs that they paid out.
One of my Carl Knoblock here talking about SBA and the revitalization fund. That's something that business owners are really looking for. They've been excited once they heard about it. Is it open now for folks to take advantage of?
Yeah, it opened yesterday. It very high demand. Our side, for once, you can smile with the federal government. They were positive about the whole thing, but our further down our supply side with our other vendors, they were struggling because of the demand.
So it's open, ready. It's open, ready to go. And you're saying the money could be going fast. So, folks get on it. On the mic with Mike, we're bringing Carl Knoblock here. We've gone through this whole process, the whole COVID situation. Restaurants now, you addressed that. You had said restaurants would bounce back, and they did. Now they're all looking up saying, hey, we have business and no workers. You're a magic man, Carl Knobloch. Is there any help or remedy for that? I knew it was hard when I saw a sign that they showed that Hardee's was closed.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, it's been really fascinating. That's one of the things I do when I drive around. I look at the localities and see which ones are basically restaurants that have shut down. And the tough part with restaurants, and you know this, Mike, is they're typically clustered together. So when you start losing one restaurant, it typically impacts the next cluster that's there, and then that's gone. And so you see this ripple effect, and that's the unfortunate part with this. It's not just one restaurant goes. And when they're in that cluster area, if they see one's gone, then people start thinking maybe the area is not as well off as it was before.
I never realized that the restaurant they're in clusters. It's
Yeah,
I never looked at that.
and think about it, Mike. If you sit here and you drive and you look at it and you see a McDonald's on the corner, how far away is a Chick-fil-A or a Burger King or something, a Wendy's from that locality?
You're right. You don't see one just sitting by itself.
That right. And the reason is because Americans are very impatient. So if they look and see the line is too long, what do?
They go to the next one.
Or that's right. That's why they go together in clusters.
See, ladies and gentlemen, that's why we're the best business radio program. We got Carl Knobloch here. Oh, here's another one that you had given me, the shuttered venue. Carl, I became a big hit with that one, letting people know about that. That was a big, there are a lot of things that came out of some of the funding that came about due to the pandemic. And the shuttered venue one was a big one. Give the listeners an idea, because now we're starting to go, the world's starting to open up again. And some of those venues, the ones who are left still standing, could use some love.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mike, on the shuttered venue opportunity grant. Actually, that opened last week. And right now we've roughly got about 10,000 applications that have come in. And the thing is with that's focused on localities that offered artisan type events at fixed localities where they have fixed seating and things like that. So one great example is your movie theaters. and also where plays were done, orchestras, all those have suffered immensely. And this program was put in place to directly assist that group. A large number of those are nonprofits. And so it's really trying to help that community out because they have definitely really struggled through this pandemic. And we all know that in a lot of these locations around them, what's always around them? Restaurants, because people eat there before or after. And so they are literally tied hand in hand together.
One of my Carl Knoblock, we used to have SBA Wednesday now because things were really hot and heavy. Carl's here now, so we're just blasting through. SBA is going to be here with us every month, talking about all the great things that SBA is doing. So, Carl, when we talked about the shuttered venue, that was something that was a very big thing, and that was it. So now with this restaurant revitalization fund, how do people go about the process of getting those funds? What's that
Okay.
process?
Actually, the process, the one thing I can say, SBA has learned a lot from the community. From when we started a year ago with the economic injury disaster loan to PPP 1, PPP 2, PPP 3, and then the shuttered venue, and now this. We've learned a lot. We've made the application much simpler. And also we've given more options to get yourself an application in. Most of the time, we know today with social media, everything's done through the internet. So that's the first way. So, if you go to restaurants.sba.gov, that's where you go to get into the portal, get an application, fill it out, and submit your materials. The other way is, which is really interesting, we've actually added the ability to do telephones. And then if people are having problems with the online part, they can call 844-279-8898 and get assistance. But Mike, you talked about this a year ago, about this public-private partnership that
Yes.
you've talked about and that we needed to do more of. And it kind of ties to what your sign says right behind you, the partnership guru. SBA must have finally heard you because we're actually working with point of sale. So like Square and those entities, Oracle, and those people that use those point of service products, they can actually apply through there to get this. So go ahead.
That's crazy. I mean, because if you had thought about it a year or two ago, that SBA would, first of all, to go with the amount of loans that you guys had done all of a sudden in a year, now you're doing, I don't know how many times that in a day, to go from that to the multiple PPPs, the economic injury, now to the shuttered venue, now to this thing. And now all of a sudden you're saying, wow, SBA is making it real easy. If we use Square or one of those, we're giving you an easier way to find a way to get to the support that you need.
Yeah, and because we know people are comfortable with those tools because they use those on a daily basis, we figured that was a much better relationship to have. And as point of service vendors have heard about this, they've requested, can they also partake? So we're screening them and providing them the template of what needs to be in the document. And then they create it to how they want it to look on their site. And people use that. In fact, this morning I was really amazed. I had a young woman call me and she talked about, she went through a lot of struggles with the economic injury disaster loan and the PPP. And I literally just had to smile this morning because she says, it was so easy. I used my point of service and it was just a piece of cake. And I thought, oh my gosh, we've come full circle. So that's a good thing.
It is a good thing. Mike King, Carl Knoblock, SBA here with us really quickly. How can folks find you out there with SBA for help?
Related to this program, like we said, it's restaurants.sba.gov. The hotline is 844-279-8898. If you want to reach us at the local level, it's 804-771-27 2400. And like I said, there's plenty of resources. Also, our resource partners, our small business development centers, our women's business centers, SCORE, our veteran business outreach centers can assist also.
On the mic with Mike, Carl Knoblock here. Portals open to get the money for restaurant revitalization. That's available now. Oh, is it still open? Let's go down through some of those other programs to see whether the funding is still available. Any part of PPP still available?
Yes, until May 31st or until the money runs out.
Okay. What's going to happen first? The money going to run out first, or we're going to get to May 31st?
Right now, with the way it looks like it's moving, it looks like the money may run out before May 31st.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Okay, I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah, that means there's a supply and demand.
That is true. The economic injury.
Actually, that one is, well, you remember last year, Mike, we had initially the EIDL advance where
Yes,
people got roughly up to a $10,000 grant, and then it turned it into number of employees, where only a lot of people got $1,000. Well, in the legislation, it came out in December, they created a targeted advance, and that basically connected with those people that were in a low income area and had a 30% loss during any 8-week period between 2019 and 2020. They would be notified, and they would have the ability to be made whole up to $10,000. So that's been going on right now.
Okay.
And so that's been moving forward in a positive direction with it. The economic injury disaster loan itself is in existence until the end of this year. So December 31st of 2021, that one should be done with. But right now it's still open. It was extended because of the pandemic still ongoing. And a lot of people are starting to actually look at it now. The other thing is that because we had such a huge demand, we had 17 million people apply for the economic injury disaster loan. Think about it, we only have 30 million businesses in the country.
Wow.
And so with that, we've also realized that the dollars are created. Typically, we give up to $2 million for a disaster, but it was cut back to 150,000 because of funding. Now they just increased that to 500,000, and we hopefully by this summer it'll be able to go up to 2 million. So companies hopefully will be able to make themselves whole with this.
SBA District Director Carl Knoblock here with us on the mic with Mike, friend of the program. Always here with some great information. So, Carl, you talk to a lot of people. Okay, before I get to the part about talking to a lot of people, a lot of times people have problems with SBA, with the system, with their paperwork. And your advice is check your paperwork. Do exactly what it says.
I can be very sincere that a lot of people that are having a lot of issues, it was things done wrong in the beginning. And once it gets into the system, it's almost impossible to try to fix, because the system trusts that you did your double check, triple check. I can't tell you where I've looked and seen people ask continuously, is this correct? Is this correct? Yes. And then when they send it, it's incorrect. And so it's like, okay. And then you want it fixed. Well, guess what happens? You remember last year when we didn't have the checks and balances in, that's what a lot of people were doing for fraud purposes. They were literally just saying, as soon as it got sent in, they said, oh, I have to change my bank account. And so there was no checks and balance. So we were having fraud issues because of those type of things. So, we tell people, it's really important to make sure that your information is right the first time. The name of your company is exactly as it shows up on your taxes. It's not different, because those are the red flags that stop your application from moving forward.
And people think it's a problem with the system, but in reality, if they ask you a question 3 times, they want you to answer it 3 times.
You're right.
That's true. One of Mike, Carl Knoblock here. So, Carl, you talk to a lot of people. This is where I was going. What's the mood out there in the streets regarding business? What are business owners looking at? How are they feeling out there?
Well, it's really fascinating. So if we break it down, the restaurants are feeling very hopeful. They're very grateful for this um, opportunity that's been finally given to them, especially those restaurants that have not opened yet, that are got that upfront cost. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize with this restaurant revitalization. There's those that were in existence before 2019, and they were able to kind of use PPP and idle. Then we had that group last year that opened up in the second half, and they really didn't have anything. This actually helps them so they can pursue things, and also some of their business costs for trying to get the restaurant open. And then we have that group up until March 11th uh, that had costs but couldn't open their doors because of restrictions and that now are able to actually recover some of those costs, which is going to help them move forward. And then the funds they get, they have to use by March 11, 2023. So it gives them plenty of time to use these funds up to help their business.
Mike King, Carl Knoblock here with the restaurant revitalization. Okay, so if PPP really didn't ask any questions and there wasn't credit, determined or anything, how intrusive is this program to get the money here?
This program is not looking at your credit. This program is looking at your gross income for 2019 minus your gross income for 2020. And if you got a PPP, you have to subtract that from that part of it also. But that's basically the formula.
So it's not something that business owners are going to look up and say, wow, this is really complicated for us to take advantage of this.
Correct. And what SBA did, and like I said, Mike, we've learned a lot over this past year. They actually released this early so people could see the program guide and see the application. And if they had concerns and questions, they were able to bring them up so we could make revisions, because there was some things we did miss, and they made us aware of it, and we made adjustments to them. And I'll give you a perfect case in point I just dealt with this morning. I had a food truck operator call me, and he says, well, I'm only really at 3 locations, but I go to other ones. How do I fill that out in my application? Because it's asking about locations. Well, actually, what locations was talking about is if you own brick and mortar locations. So let's just say Subways. How many Subway locations do you have? That's really what it was asking. But, looking through a food truck operator's eyes, he or she saw it totally different. So these are things that we're trying to, these are people very conscientious, trying to do things right and don't want to mess it up. And we appreciate them asking those very good questions so we can help try to make it easier for them.
What is the process, or how long from application, entry, approval to funds showing up? What a person would think that would be?
I mean, they're literally trying to sit here and, like I said, the first 21 days, they're literally taking them, and they're going to try to get funds out to that group within 21 days after that.
Really?
Yeah, they're trying to turn it as quickly as possible because we know this sector is really hurting and they need some relief, because we know a number of them have, as I call it, the bill payers waiting at the door.
For sure. So, Carl, this is free money. This is grant money. This ain't there's no repayment that goes with this.
Yeah, and that's the other nice thing. The payroll protection program is technically a loan, but if you do everything right, it's a grant. But you have to do everything right. With this is a pure grant. And so as long as you have your documentation, and then, it's just told that when you spend the money, just keep records in case you're asked later to show proof where you spent that money. You can show proof.
Alrighty, Carl Knoblock here. Carl, one last time, how can people find it out there?
Okay, they can go to restaurants, in plural form, .sba.gov, or they can call the hotline 844-279-8898 and get connected.
There you go. Carl Knoblock, always here with some great information. All right, Carl, appreciate it. Thanks. We'll talk to you next time.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike, for having me. Truly appreciate it.
On the mic with Mike, Carl Knoblock. We'll be back on the other side. Thanks now. On the mic with Mike, I'd like to thank our good friend Carl Knoblock from SBA. Once again, the weather for today is sponsored by our good friends over at Cena Hospitality. Cena Hospitality is out there offering great hotel space, whether it be for hotel rooms or whether it is for event space. Make sure you check them out at Cena Hospitality. Weather today, 81 with light rain, high 81, low of 58. The chance of precipitation, 40%. Winds out of the south-southwest. Sunset today at 8:05. As I said, it's going to be nice, but there's going to be a little rain in the forecast. Make sure you check out good friends over Cena Hospitality. They're out there at some clean rooms, great facilities. That way you're able to have great events. Tell Ravi Patel at Mike King sent you on the mic with Mike. On the mic with Mike, would like to thank also at that location of Fairfield. It is the business summit that we're having, talking about what post-COVID business looks like in the RVA area. We're having that May the 17th, 5 a.m. We're going to have that. It is going to be coming to you from the Fairfield, owned by Cena Hospitality. On the mic with Mike. Also, our good friend Annette Shore is sponsoring that with me. Shore Financial, she helps nonprofits with their financial, as well as to be more efficient and to run better. So that will be the Biz Summit at the Fairfield, May 17th. We're going to have everyone from Henrico County Administrator, Chesterfield Manager. We're going to have the head of travel tourism. We're going to have the head of, as well as the Restaurant Hotel Administration. The association is going to be there. On the mic with Mike, we will bring you the best and brightest. We're also going to have an interview with the mayor. Interview with the mayor is May the 14th, coming to you live from the Common House. On the mic with Mike, the best business radio program around. With that being said, I'm Mike King, and we're out. Take care, folks. We'll talk to you next time.